Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Liaqat Zaman and welcome to this video. This video I'm going to be talking about Islam. I'm going to be talking about Islam in a general way, how Islam applies to our lives, how Islam applies to prayer and marriage and military and all these kind of different things that the Quran talks about. But I'm going to give it in a more easier to kind of understand way, or easy way to understand it, inshallah. So Islam is the religion which the Muslims believe in, and it simply means to submit. So submission or obedience to Almighty Allah is what Islam is all about. So God, Allah, He created the universe. This is what Allah tells us in the Quran. He created the universe. The universe, every single thing that we can see includes the universe. The stars, the galaxies, animals, trees, plants, every single thing that you can see is created by Allah. Even the mountains we have, this is an image you can see on the side. And Allah, amongst those things that He created was the planet Earth. So He's created Earth. Earth is something that, in this image you can see planet, it's got water on there, it's got land on there. And when God creates this, He creates also creatures on Earth. And amongst those creatures, He creates humans as well. So you have a planet, and this planet has creatures on there. And amongst these creatures are humans. And humans, Allah has created for them all forms of what they need to survive, right? So you have food, you have drink, you have place to stay, you have, environment, atmosphere that they can breathe in. All the things that they require for them to be able to live, Allah has created it on them for Earth. So humans now are going to be living on Earth. Humans are different from other creatures, Allah tells us. Humans actually have the ability to make their own choices in many things in their life. Unlike other animals, humans have intellect, have the ability to be able to imagine things, have the ability to be able to simulate things in their minds, calculations, formulations, all sorts of things humans can do in their minds. So humans have to remember that they are creatures that live in groups, live together. And humans have two unique features from other creatures, which are mind and desires. So humans have the ability to be able to think of things, formulate things in their mind, simulate things in their mind, do complicated calculations, think of complicated recipes for food, all sorts of things humans do with their minds. And they also have desires to motivate them to be able to push themselves to be able to live on Earth. Now, these minds and desires, if you were to just use the minds and desires, then you're not really going to be able to get humans to do the best that they can on Earth, right? Because it will lead to lots of other things, lots of other byproducts which are harmful for humans, and it can actually lead to the destruction of humans. So they need divine direction. Allah tells us about divine direction that is given to them, and this divine direction comes from God, comes from Allah, and it comes to them in the form of a divine scripture. And this divine scripture is communicated by God to His messengers, and the messengers have been sent since the beginning of time. Since humans have been around, messengers have been communicated with, and these messengers have been coming with messages, and these messages have primarily been based upon the same thing. Common denominator amongst all the messages is to believe in God and to not have partners with God, and to be just and fair on Earth. So the messengers that came, there were many of them that came. Each one of them would come to their own tribe. They were sent amongst their own people, speaking their own language, and be able to communicate with them what God wanted them to do and what God wanted them to stay away from. So when these messengers would come, these messengers would naturally have people that would follow them, and would have people that would go against them. And so the messengers themselves would have challenges. And in the Quran, God tells us, Allah tells us about the challenges that the messengers would face in trying to convey this message. So those people who would accept this message would become the followers of that messenger, would become the followers of that prophet, you could say as well, which was also a name given. And so the whole point of this messenger series of messengers was the remembrance of God. Okay, so you have remembrance of God, you have messengers that were coming, and the people were being reminded. And as we said, the remembrance of God in itself is the epitome of that is prayer itself. So prayer, direct access to or communication of humans to God, was prayer, and this was an epitome of remembering God. However, this is not the only way God is remembered by humans. God is also remembered by humans in all the other things they do in their life, as long as they're doing it in accordance with the directions from God himself. So, for example, like what they consume, what they eat, their marriage, how they do business, fasting, and all sorts of other things. As long as they're done within the parameters that God has set, then this is included in the remembrance of God. Okay, so you have this remembrance of God, and the messengers came for this. So the people amongst them, you're going to have some humans who are going to be rich, wealthy, have more wealth than others, and you're going to have some who are not so lucky, or are needy rather. They're going to be in situations where they would require financial support, they would require help. Maybe the rich would need to support the poor. So God has a system where you give charity. So regularly charity must be given from the rich to the poor, so that there's not too much of a gap between the rich and the poor, and that the poor, through the support of the rich, can also live their lives in a reasonably comfortable way. So you have this system set in place, and this would also include people helping those who are in need as well, through other means as well. So you'd have some people who are not needy financially but needy in their health. So you'd have people who are physicians, doctors, being able to help those. Some people who are needy in knowledge, require knowledge. So you'd have the people who are rich in knowledge, helping those who are in need of knowledge, etc., etc. You'd have various types of people in the community. So this is one type of or category, you can say, that we have amongst the people, which is the charity. So charity, now, so that charity is not abused, we have to have a system in place. So God sets a system in the Quran of how charity should be distributed, the rules of charity, the regulations, the amount even of how much we should give is also something which has been told to us through the messengers. The times even of when this charity should be given. So we have a regular charity that is given to the needy, and there are times in the year that this is given. So all of these things, including knowing about your community as well. By giving charity, you know those people who are in need, you know those people who are rich, and so the government can set up a system where people's money can be funneled or channeled to the right people without it being abused. Otherwise, money is something which can cause, like the Quran mentions to us, many people have been destroyed through the love of the wealth, and the love of the wealth the Quran is described as being where people's rights and God's rights are compromised because of love of wealth. Right, so we have one where we have this rich helping the needy. Then the second is procreation. So humans will have to procreate. There will have to be a system on earth where humans have been designed to procreate. So the procreation system will last as long as it's done correctly, right? So you're going to have men and you're going to have women who will come together, and they'll have children, and then these children will have grandchildren, then they'll have great-grandchildren, and so forth, and the families will get bigger. And then you'll have systems in place where you'll need rules, because the bigger the family becomes, it becomes from a small unit to a large administration. So you'd require people that have rules to obey, and these rules are there so that people do not abuse one another, right? So you have this system in place. Okay, we also have can they live together, right? So can these people live together? So in other words, humans will not all be able to live together. Some of the humans will not like one another, some of them will clash with one another. However, those who can live together, those who are able to live together, there has to be rules for them to be able to be compatible with each other and have harmony in their society. So this is facilitated through the system of marriage. So there are rules for marriage. A man and a woman will come together and they will get married, and then they have to promise each other certain things as well, take care of one another. So there is this idea where a person or two people that come together, one of them takes the responsibilities of finance, of protecting, support, and the other will take the responsibilities of bringing up the children, etc. So you have this system in place. Mutually they both agree on many of these things, but you have to have this system in place, and there has to be a limit on marriage as well. There has to be a limit on how many a person can marry. There has to be a limit on how much a person can tolerate in a marriage. Not all marriages will work. Marriages may fail, and if they do fail, then there has to be a system in place where the people, the partners, can actually exit this marriage. Right, so we have these limits in place, and also part of this is that we recognize who is family and who is not family. So once we understand this, we have financial rules, regulations which are in place as well. Like, for example, the rulings of inheritance. When one person passes away and one person dies, there has to be things in place that the wealth can easily be distributed amongst the correct heirs, those who deserve it, and without it leading to arguments or fighting, or especially when it comes to wealth. So this is also in place, and also that a person does not harm the rights of other people outside of the family system. So these are some of the things, and I'm not going to go too much detail in this, but this is just generally what the Quran or what Islam it presents to us. And also I'm trying to explain it in a very easy to follow way as well, so that the general person can just follow this and understand a general overview of Islam. So now when we talk about others, right, we talked about others earlier on. So others are those people who are outside of the marriage, outside of the family, right, outside of your kin. So we have to show them respect, we have to show them kindness, we have to show them sometimes professionalism, sometimes be formal with them. Having good character is also very important when it comes to the teachings of the Quran, that we are able to communicate with one another, we are able to interact with one another. However, we don't abuse them. Again, we don't show them, like the Quran mentioned, dhulm, oppression. So having patience, being thankful, showing kindness, supporting, helping one another, all of these things are things that will help us gel with one another in our communities, whether it's the smaller community, whether it's the larger community, whether it's between us and our family members, parents, even children. All of these have rules, and respect should be shown to all of them. Okay, so we also have, when it comes to the family, we also have, or not just family, people outside, we have, like we said, challenges that we will face. So we must not harm them. There's going to be many times where we will be in situations where we want to harm other people. However, we have to control ourselves. We have to remember that compromising our own desires is very important when it comes to the harmony of the greater good. And this also includes dress code as well. So there has to be certain parts of our body that have to be concealed, that we don't show to other people, and this also inculcates inside of us importance of having a certain level of modesty as well. So certain parts of the body have to be covered up, and also dressing in a certain way for public as well is also something which is desired in society, so that it includes communication with others as well. All right, and also procreation, and then we have others. We also have food and drink. So as we are humans will require consuming food, drinking, and all of this consummation of food and drinking is because humans cannot function without this. So on earth there's going to be lots of things that humans can consume. However, not everything there will be for their consummation. So God in his message has mentioned about certain types of creatures, animals that we cannot consume, and also the property of other people as well. So the property of other people, that which they deserve, that which belongs to them, we are not allowed to consume that without their consent. So we have rules of trade in place as well. So the rules of trade are there because we require food and drink, and because we require food and drink, we will require also things to purchase. We'll require a home to stay in. We may even require vehicles to travel around in. We may even require clothing. And all of these things we can't produce ourselves, but we need from other people. And so we need to respect their wealth. We're not allowed to steal from them. We're not allowed to force, usurp it from them. None of these things at all. And so there has to be laws and rules in place for this. So the food and drink is a very important topic in the Quran, that we are very conscious about controlling our desires. We're controlling what we consume. We don't eat everything, and we don't eat as much as we can. We eat what we require for our survival, and we only eat that which is permissible by God. Yes, there's going to be certain situations where a person may have to consume something which is not necessarily permitted by God. However, it's the only thing that will keep them alive, and these are exemptions which God himself mentions is permissible. And so controlling of food and drink, God has the system in place in the Quran of fasting. So you have this idea or this concept which once a year, where we fast a specific time in the year. We have controlling three things we control. We control our food intake, we control our drink intake, and we control intimacy. So in the daytime, we are not allowed to eat, we are not allowed to drink, and we are not allowed to have intimacy in the daytime for a specific month in the year. And this is what we call the month of fasting. So the month of Ramadan, as we call it, the month of fasting is this training month that we have, where we control our diet, and by controlling our diet we're able to focus our energy, focus ourselves on refining our character and helping other people, and also becoming more efficient in other areas of life, right? Because sometimes food can also become something which results in negative traits like greed, like jealousy, like arrogance, pride, and these are things which God wants us to stay away from. So once we talked about food and drink, we also have the other aspect of living in a community, which is how we can function as a society. So functioning as a society has two aspects to it. The first is the penal code is required. There has to be laws, strict laws in place, that if anyone breaks these laws, there is this penalty in place. So a system of penalties, which we call the penal code, has to be in place. And likewise, the second is the military action as well. So there will be situations where the society will be attacked by foreigners or by someone else, and the government will have to act. People will have to act. So this requires there to be a government. So there has to be some sort of strong body that can oversee the people's needs and can act for their benefit and welfare. So this government that we have, that will act on their welfare and their benefit, has to have a penal code set up, which is part of it is mentioned to us in the divine book, in the Quran, and also military action as well. So when military action is required, how do we carry out this military action? When do we carry out this military action? What is required for this military action? Funding, etc. All of this is something which the Quran tells us about. So for example, like code murder, if someone commits murder, this is considered to be wrong. Theft is considered to be wrong. Slander is considered wrong. Fornication is considered wrong, etc. So for all of these, there is specific codes in place to counter the uprise of crime in society. And then we have military action. So military action can be either done through due to rebels, people rebelling, criminals in the society, gangs, or because of foreign elements. So foreign societies, foreign countries attacking the country that the people live in. There has to be systems in place of military which can counter this and safeguard the people living in that society. So keeping all of this in mind now, so obviously, like I said to you, the trade, business and trade, this all falls under the food and drink and relating with others, and this is a very important part. I haven't really gone too much into depth about this. However, there are very important rules and regulations that our trading is transparent with one another, that we buy and sell from one another, those things which God permits, and there are certain things that we are not allowed to buy and sell, and one of those, like the Quran mentions, is about interest. Okay, interest is totally impermissible. Okay, God himself has in the Quran mentioned to us about an important gathering that we have annually, and this annual gathering that we have is a gathering of unity. It takes place in a specific location on earth, and this is a location that was a historic location, a location which was the first place on earth where God was worshipped, known as Mecca, known as the Kaaba, the house of Allah. So people from around the world, wherever they may be, they have to try and visit this place once in their lifetimes if they have the capability. So they come from all backgrounds, men and women, wearing a certain attire showing that all of them are equal, and they come and they perform circumambulation, or they go around circuits around the Kaaba, the house of God, and these acts of devotion that they perform are acts to show that they are submitting themselves to God. And this event takes place once a year, and people travel from all parts of the world. So this is basically just like a summary. I thought, let me know what you guys think of this. Maybe I can make a more detailed one later on, but I was thinking maybe for general people who don't really have a deep understanding of the nitty-gritty sort of insights into Islam, maybe this might be beneficial for them. Let me know if you benefited, or someone else might benefit from this. And maybe I've made some mistakes or anything, and maybe I can correct something here. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much, and thank you very much to all my patrons for supporting me. MashaAllah, you guys are brilliant people. And if any of you guys want to support me in this channel and help me through my videos, you can support me through my Patreon by giving monthly donations. You'll be helping me a lot, and you'll also be becoming a means for sadaqah jariyah for yourselves and helping other people around the world getting access to these types of videos. Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.